If you want to see your name at the beginning of all of our videos, as well as see exclusive content here on the homestead, please feel free to join our Patreon. Memberships start off at just $1 a month. And as always, thank you for your support.
It's another one of those morning on Facebook groups. This is a picture I pulled off the internet, not the Facebook groups. I know better than that. But let's talk malocclusion. If your rabbit has malocclusion of any type, I highly suggest culling it. Be that hard or soft cull, it needs to be removed from your lines. Now, this is a very extreme case, but it can get this bad with even the slightest amount of malocclusion from the beginning. Now, I've heard it said before that, oh, you can just trim the teeth and it will be fine. And if we're talking about meat ratios and the health of our rabbits, it's not fine. Because although we can see a problem in the front of the mouth, a lot of times there's also a problem in the back of the mouth. And because of the problems in the mouth in general, you're not going to see a good feed to input-output ratio, because the rabbit can't properly eat and grind its food. And in the times that we do trim the teeth down, if it is in the front, we're going to see a fluctuation of weight from when we trim the teeth to where they aren't trimmed. And for my naysayers who say something along the lines of, oh, just give the rabbit something to chew on to keep their teeth in check, that isn't the point. Because even if they have something to chew on, because the teeth aren't properly aligned in the mouth, they can't grind against each other. Good genetics equate to good teeth. And if a rabbit has good teeth, it doesn't matter what kind of feed they have, be it pellet, be it hay, be it chews, because they have good aligned teeth, they will care for themselves. But all of that to say, this is something in your genetic lines that you don't want. Now, there are cases of malocclusion when it comes to injury. With that said, I found it to be far rarer compared to genetic malocclusion. Thankfully, I haven't found anything like this in our lines, but if I would, it would be a cull for the entire line, because this really can screw up your lines. And feed is already expensive as it is. Putting more into a rabbit that isn't really going to retain weight and is going to pass that problem along to future generations is just something you don't want to deal with. So you don't need to post it. I got you. You gave me enough information to where I can find it. And with that being said, it's been a hot minute since I have done a deep dive on a source. So let's hop into it. So here is the source that you have given me when it comes to rabbit housing. To start off with, they quote the legal duty of care under the Animal Welfare Act of 2006, which we have talked about a crap ton on this channel, but let me refresh your memories. Animal Welfare Act of 2006, here's the accommodations for size, which all of my cages are larger than the recommendations given. Here is the recommendation on flooring when it comes to the 2006 Animal Welfare Act. Again, all of my cages meet the recommendations given when it comes to mesh/wire flooring. Moving on, when it comes to the RSPCA, they keep saying studies, studies, studies. But which scientific studies are we talking about? Well, we go down to the bottom, and they don't really quote those studies. They have useful links in which they link themselves, but unless you have a continued education in the source which you are citing, meaning you have a master's, a doctorate, or an advanced doctorate, quoting yourself is biased and redundant. Not to mention, I don't believe this has a specific author other than the company itself, or rather the nonprofit itself. So let's go through the entirety of this rabbit housing segment. At one point, they do list the University of Lincoln's study on housing needs of rabbits. So let's go Google that. So the first thing that comes up when we search this is, of course, the Animal Welfare Act, which we just went over from 2006. The next thing, though, that pops up is lincolnu.edu down-to-earth reports from the field. In that, something comes out about hutches having a 1 square foot floor space per pound of rabbit. Okay, looks interesting. Let's go check it out. All right, so it's still not a study, nor are there sources at the bottom of the site, but let's go through it. After it all, it is the university that you brought to attention. And it says the minimum size for a good hutch is 2 by 2.5 feet, which is basically my smallest cage. My larger cages are a good bit larger than that. but it is from the university that the Humane Society is quoting. But because they aren't bringing the exact study to mind, and there are thousands of studies about rabbit and cage space and flooring, one can only assume that the Humane Society either isn't reading what they're sourcing, or they're just making up numbers and just bringing studies to mind that they think will fit their narrative. But I wouldn't know because they didn't actually cite anything, they don't have an author, and there's really no background other than this is what is right and this is what I say. So yeah. With absolutely zero nuance, here's who I'm taking to show this weekend. If you want more nuance, I'll have a video going up on the 2nd of December on my YouTube going into the nuance. First off, we have Cookie, my junior Champagne d'Argent doe. I'm gonna take her. Mercury, my junior Silver Fox doe, is going too. My daughter is going to take Cyrax into the youth show, and I'll be taking Velma into the Mini Rex junior doe category. So we're only taking 4 this weekend, but that should give me a good enough excuse to take a Silver Fox. And to test out a couple of does I'm really hoping are going to give me some nice litters for convention. Sometimes I really hate wintertime, like with a burning passion hate, and it's not a good day. But we got 4 inches of snow overnight, it's cold, my fire went out last night, so I've been trying to get it back up and going. And I honestly just have the winter blues. Like, I am ready for spring to be here, and we have just barely started winter. So yeah, I just needed to gripe for a minute, so thank you for listening. This is Cookie. Cookie is my Champagne d'Argent doe. And for the longest while, I was terrified to get her stacked up because she is currently my only Champagne d'Argent doe, and she is the prodigy that Belle left behind. But I was afraid to get her stacked up because she was my only doe, and I was going to go to show this weekend, and I was like, okay, I need to get her stacked up. And I am pleased to say she has her father's body type. She is a little meat brick. She is just a gorgeous little girl, and I'm super excited. She's only about 3 months old, so she doesn't have the champagne coloring yet, but she is starting to get her mask and her coloring in on her butt. That's why you see this part is lighter and this part is darker. But with how she looks, I am so pleasantly surprised by how amazing she is already. So I am going over my quarterly reports when it comes to the rabbit barn. And something I really do in the winter heavily is just cut down my numbers. Because feed is expensive, and winter it's harder to put weight on grow outs. At least in my experience compared to the summer, but also understand we have very mild summers up on the mountain. Like 60, 70 degrees, perfect for grow outs. So during the winter, even though we breed more, sometimes it takes a little extra to put that weight on. And it's definitely not worth keeping extra does for breeding if they're not doing a purpose compared to summer. So I have problems. One of which is I have way too many mini Rex. I have 8. I have 8 gosh darn mini Rex, which is my largest breed, numbers wise at least. And then it's kind of neck and neck secondary for my Rex and my Silver Fox, and I have my 2 Champagnes. So my next butcher is coming up probably next week, and I'll be butchering out Penguin and Freddy. Penguin because she's on strike number 4, and if she misses this litter, it'll technically be strike 5. Most of those strikes are missed litters, which isn't a big deal, but I looked at her survival rate with her kits, and because she lost an entire litter that one time, her survival rate dropped dramatically. And if she misses again, that'll be 4 misses. Just in general, don't want to keep that doe. And then Freddy, my Silver Fox, is the full sister to Mercury. Love Mercury, she's gorgeous. She's a little over silvered, but overall as a rabbit isn't bad. But between her and Freddy, Mercury definitely grew out much nicer than Freddy. So I'm not going to be keeping Freddy out of that litter, and I kind of narrowed it down to 1. In January, I'm looking at butchering out my 3 buck grow outs out of my last litter from 1 and Alpha. And then that'll also give me time to see if 1 caught, because in theory she should be due in 2 weeks. But my really big butcher is coming up in February, because I'll be butchering out what's ever left of Emma's litter I don't want to keep, Alpha, because I'm hoping to replace him, and I'm whittling down my silver fox bucks because I have 3, and I'm looking at butchering out Lalo. And that's just because he has consistently missed with multiple does. He's about a year old now, and he should be catching, but he's just not getting the point. And according to my mentors, bucks are only good for 2 things, feeding and the other F word. And then I also planned my next breedings for Mercury and Nina. And then I want to breed Mercury to Zeus and Nina to Wiley, but really focusing on those silver foxes, because Danny's talking about moving soon. And it would be easier to move if I only had 2 breeds, but I would need another video to explain everything. When it comes to strikes and breeding, a lot of times you can kind of tell who's at fault. It just depends on the behavior of the rabbits. So if you have a doe that's really into a buck and is trying to get bred, but the buck is not getting the point, it's probably the buck's fault. And if you have a doe that's just not lifting, even though the buck is super interested, it's probably the buck's fault. There are also environmental factors that can be at play, such in the summer as heat sterility on the buck's end. But if push comes to shove, I will strike both animals. But unless it's a really young buck that doesn't know what they're doing, a lot of times it's not really a buck issue more than it is a doe issue. Most bucks are really eager to do their job, and a lot of times it's the doe who's just not interested. And you also have to keep in mind that when it comes to breeding ages, a buck lasts a lot longer than a doe does. A buck in good condition can breed for their entire life, where a doe has a limited window. It's also important to keep in mind that my strikes are arbitrary, and a lot of times when it comes to catching, I'm very lenient, especially if it's the doe's first litter or it's the buck's first time breeding. So I had somebody earlier, and I can't find the comment, who asked why we were interested in perfecting fur type and color if we're breeding for meat. And fair question, fair enough. In theory, if you're just breeding for meat, you shouldn't care about other things. But we breed certain breeds to the standard of perfection because we want to improve our breed. And it goes beyond just showing, because let's say I didn't have the money to show right now, I would still be breeding towards the standard of perfection to improve my lines on the off chance that another day I could afford to go to a show. And this is also why when talking to just meat breeders, we talk about types so much. Yes, you can have a meat mutt, but try to breed them to a commercial body standard. And that's because that body type equates to the highest meat ratio in the short amount of time. But moving on from just meat, when we look at fur type, it's all about the standard of perfection and bettering the breed. But let me give you an example. Silver foxes have a very specific fur type that I am breeding towards. Wiley right here has a horrible fur type when it comes to silver foxes. It's almost like a flyback fur. My next gen after that, Vanessa. Vanessa she is mad because I don't have food. Give me a second. She is a very pregnant, grumpy mama. But when we look at Vanessa's fur type, it's longer than Wiley's, but it's not quite there yet when it comes to length, and it's still not standing the way I want it to. Her daughter Mercury, which is the next generation working on fur, if you look at her, she has the length. It's starting to stand up the way it should. She still has a bit of a baby coat though, so we're going to see improvements. Now if we compare that to De Piece de Resistance, the rabbit with the best fur, and why I specifically got her, and Zeus. This is perfection when it comes to silver fox fur. Not only is it standing, it has the grip you want, and it is thick. It's lush. Look at that. That is what I am breeding into my homebred lines to improve to get there. Because I have body type down, but my bred lines at home just don't have that fur type. So because of the standard of perfection and breeding to better the breed, I am trying to get here. But as much as I love Nina, her body type is kind of lacking. So the idea is I breed her to Wiley. And if I get one buck that has Nina's fur type with Wiley's body type, I'm set and I don't have to keep the worse fur. Just like if I breed Zeus to Mercury, I'm getting the fur and body type. So personally, to keep track of all of my breeding information, I use the app called Everbreed. Now you could do everything that this app does on Excel, and I've done that before as well. And of course there's Evans, which I know a lot of other breeders like, but I like that this one's mobile and I can keep track of things on the go. Everbreed keeps track of all of your rabbits for you and will basically keep track of as little or as much as you want. So in theory, I could go into a rabbit's ID. We'll take Penguin here. And I can go into her dashboard and edit any of this information. So you can't see them, but up in the right-hand corner, there are 3 little dots, which basically is a drop-down menu of what you want to do. And one of the options is to weigh your rabbit. I really missed the glitch that this had a month or so ago where it would add an extra 0 onto the end of your weights. So I had like 50 and 100-pound rabbits and it just made me really happy. They're really good about fixing glitches and I no longer have that glitch, which makes me kind of sad. But you can go in, look up the litters that the rabbits had in the past and currently. You can see current tasks that the rabbit's supposed to have. Like for instance, Penguin is supposed to give birth today. And then the app also keeps track of pedigrees for you. I know it looks a little weird right here and it continues to go back and you can edit it. What you basically do is you hit the 3 buttons right there and you put it into print page and then it reorganizes everything. And then you get all of the information that you see on Penguin. And then you can also add like coefficients and that kind of thing as well in the print version. And then it also keeps track of all of the annoying things that I talk about when it comes to like strikes. And you can also look at like kit status as a whole for does. The reason I pulled Penguin up is we've talked about before how she lost an entire litter around week 2. And that accounts for all of these. Which, don't get me wrong, it sucks she lost those kits, but it's definitely great to see where she sits as a breeder. That, along with the misses, I know right away how many strikes she has and how much she has fucked up. You can also keep track of things that are going on within your rabbitry. So like for instance, you can put on a schedule how often somebody should have their nails cut and it will automatically on schedule bring up when it should be done. Or if we look at like Stumpy's medical records, I have when she was a kit, her and another kit got into a fight while they were still housed together and she ripped her ear. And I have that in her notes of when she did that and what treatments I used. But you can also see it in this viewpoint on a calendar date. And then you can also set up breeding plans. So for instance, I have that Daisy was bred on the 28th, and if you continue to scroll down, you can see where she's to give birth, when the kit should be weaned, and where I want to rebreed her. And all of the reports that I talk about are tracked by the app. And you can always make notes for every animal you have. It is my favorite time of night on the homestead, where everyone is fed and eating, and I am cuddling with baby bunnies as I'm doing so, because what else would you do when you have a giant hoodie with a kangaroo pouch? And I am just cold. I hate this, but I just love my barn time, so I'm just sitting here dealing with it. I also gotta head inside at some point and register myself for the show this weekend because it's due, and well, I might not have done it yet, and I'm really bad about it, but it's okay because my friend asked me this morning, she goes, hey, have you signed up for the show and paid your dues? And I'm like, oh, no, I normally do that at the very last minute. She goes, okay, good. I thought I was being a horrible pet rabbit person because I haven't signed up for the shows or paid dues yet either. And I'm like, nah, no, you're cool. I'd like take forever to sign too. So I gotta go in and do that. Tomorrow I'll get my tattooing done and all will be fine and well. But I'm just hoping that it stays above 32 like they said it was supposed to tonight because I have 3 mamas that are technically due. Penguin normally doesn't have her babies till day 32, but the other 2 moms that I'm expecting are brand new moms, so I don't know. But the sound of munching, crunching, eating bunnies makes my heart happy and lowers my anxiety, so I'm just gonna chill out here for a few more minutes even though I'm freezing.